Welcome to the life of... Hello my little Electra Hearts. Welcome back to the next episode of Discography Dives with me, ElliXia Q Valentine, a series in which I dive into the discography of some of my favourite artists. This series we are diving into the discography of the wonderful Marina, formerly known as Marina and the Diamonds. Now, let me address the elephant in the room.
An elephant in the room?
I'm aware that last week's episode was over a month ago. This was going to be a series to lead up to her new album, Ancient Dreams in a Modern Land, which came out on the 11th of June. I am now filming this on the 28th of June. The album has been out for 2 weeks and we are only on album number 2 in this retrospective series. I have no excuse really, I've just not managed my time very well. And then, you know, when you haven't done something for a little while then you get a bit of stage fright. That's basically what happened. But better late than never. Also, my copy of Ancient Dreams in a Modern Land hasn't actually arrived yet, so I can't really do a video on that until it does arrive. So blame Marina, it's actually Marina's fault. Anyway, before I embarrass myself any further, let's move on to the topic at hand. This week we are discussing 2012's Electra Heart, released on the 30th of April 2012, and it reached number 1 on the UK Albums Chart. The album was quite a lengthy era with many music videos and short visual videos to tell the story of the album, the story of Electra Heart herself. The series of videos ran for 2 years, from the 8th of August 2011 to the 8th of August 2013, in which she killed off the character Electra Heart. Electra Heart was sort of an alter ego for Marina. The character of Electra Heart wore a blonde wig, was a lot more sort of selfish and, dare I say, shallow, but sort of deep beneath that blonde bombshell exterior, Electra Heart was actually a very hurt and damaged character. This album, alongside the 11 visuals that accompanied it, tell that story. Today's look is inspired by the aesthetic of Electra Heart. There's a lot of vintage kind of 50s bubblegum, sickly sweet, and this is what I'm going for. These gloves, however, these gloves are ripping further and further apart on my arms and in my hands, so let's get on with the video whilst I still have a pair of gloves intact. Let me state first and foremost, I think Electra Heart is a masterpiece. I ranked it as the best album of 2012, and when I did my rounding up of the decade in 2019, I ranked it as number 5, I think, overall. So that's a pretty strong showing. And I think Electra Heart is fantastic because there's a level of sort of ironic pop. Because for the Family Jewels, Marina was considered more indie and alternative, Electra Heart was... However, I've always maintained that the Family Jewels had pop sensibilities about it. So it wasn't a giant leap like I think a lot of the critics at the time wanted to make out that it was. Electra Heart does use a lot more electro-pop. Should we say electro-pop? Get it? And she worked with some very big name producers at the time as well. I get the impression that Marina felt that she needed to put on a sort of character in order to be able to do those kind of songs. And I feel like as the album progresses, that facade does begin to drop. The album begins with very up-tempo pop songs which are quite sort of shallow in their lyrical content. And as the album progresses towards the end, it does actually get significantly darker, while still initially maintaining that upbeat pop sound, but with darker lyrics. And then it becomes a lot more sort of serious and introspective towards the end. I think it's a really great album in that respect. It's certainly an album that 2012 me definitely related to, which of course I will get into as we go into the songs themselves. But I can remember 2012, I was 20, I was sort of in a weird phase in my life where I was going through like, I was sort of like lamenting the fact that I wasn't a teenager anymore, and that I felt a little bit like I was falling behind at life, even though I look back on that time now. Excuse me. Even though I've since learned that, you know, we all develop at our own pace. At that time I wasn't wise enough, I guess, so. Without further ado, let's dive in to the track listing. Now this track listing has 12 tracks on the standard version, 16 on the deluxe version, which is what I have here, and then also there are 4 extra tracks that were released sort of in the following months after the album's initial release. So there's 20 tracks in total for this era, so let's get to it. Up first we have Bubblegum Bitch, a title which sold me straight away. It's very up-tempo. It almost sounds a bit like it could be the opening theme of like a Marina cartoon. It's very camp, it's very shallow with its lyrics, but in a very fun sort of way. You know, I love the lyrics, Dear Diary, I met a boy, he made my dull heart light up with joy. Dear Diary, we fell apart, welcome to the life of Electra Heart. And I think it sets up sort of the ride that we're in for very well. And speaking of that line, there's a fantastic video that I referenced in the intro to this one, where she's singing it at an event and she goes, welcome to the life of, and then puts a microphone out to the audience. Now, the audience do actually sing the lyric back, but because of the mic feed in the area she's performing it in, it sounds like nobody responds and it's really awkward. But yeah, Bubblegum Bitch is very fun, and you know, that's a great title in itself. You know, definitely would have been my MSN name if we had MSN back in 2012. I can distinctly remember writing it on my Freshers t-shirt in my second year of uni as well, because I thought that sums me up quite well. You know, I'm bubblegummy and I'm also a bitch, so. Track 2, we have Prima Donna. Prima Donna was the album's lead single that was released in April 2012, and to this date, it actually remains Marina's highest peaking song in the UK singles chart, reaching number 11. Prima Donna's fantastic. It does follow a somewhat generic pop formula of the time, but she still manages to do so in Marina's own way. It's still very much a Marina record. The lyrics are a lot more intelligent, they're witty. She manages to play a character of a prima donna who is like this selfish, spoilt brat. And she manages to do it in a way that is actually endearing, and you don't hate her for it. Me and my friend Charlie, shout out to Charlie, we used to sing the male version, which was Prima David. It was very silly, and we still call each other that to this day. Track 3, we have Lies. Lies is where the album actually already begins to get a little bit more serious. You know, Lies is a ballad with somewhat dubstep elements to it. Again, dubstep was very big at the time. A lot of dubstep was incorporated into mainstream pop. Lies deals with being with a man who she knows isn't right for her and doesn't love her and isn't going to treat her the way she wants to be treated, but she just wants to pretend and just act as if nothing is wrong, even though she knows deep down it is. There's a sense of desperation with the lyrics and, you know, fooling herself into thinking that this man really does care for her when in reality he doesn't. Relatable for the time when I used to get crushes on straight boys. Glad I'm not there anymore. No offense to any straight boys who may be watching this. And Lies is kind of an interesting one, because you could kind of take it sort of two ways really. Either take it as that she's sort of being hurt and feel sorry for her, or you could take it as her being a spoiled brat, again, the prima donna, not getting what she wants. Maybe it's both. Track 4, we have Homewrecker, which is straight back to the bitchy with a capital B kind of pop. I absolutely adore Homewrecker. It was released as a free download, I remember, in February 2012, so it was like our first proper taste of what the album was going to sound like, and I was obsessed. I love the spoken word verses. It's such a vicious song because, you know, she's proudly singing about ruining people's relationships and, you know, I break a million hearts just for fun. Great lyric. Homewrecker really is Marina relishing in this opportunity to play another character. And I know that myself because I perform Homewrecker sometimes at my gigs, and it's so not me because I am not that kind of person at all. But for when I'm singing Homewrecker for those 3 minutes and however many seconds, I am. and you better watch out. It's a fun role to play, you know. Sometimes it's fun being temporarily a bitch. Because you don't get to be a bitch in real life, but you get to be one for like 3 minutes on stage, and it's fun. Next track we have is Starring Role, track number 5. I really love Starring Role. It's a ballad. It has that sort of vibe where it's kind of like, is she being genuinely hurt by this man, or is she being a spoiled brat again, not getting what she wants? Because you could argue she's being a diva by demanding all this attention from this guy who isn't giving it to her. It's Marina being in a shitty relationship where she is not going to play second fiddle to this man's starring role. She's saying, no, I'm the starring role. I'd rather be on my own if I'm not going to be your starring role. On to track 6, we have The State of Dreaming. State of Dreaming sounds very similar, I think, in sort of its vibe to Hollywood. State of Dreaming is about that delusion of being a star in your own mind, I guess. She thinks about how her life is a play, I live my life inside a dream. I definitely can relate to that. You know, there's been several times whenever I'm walking down the street listening to music, I'm always imagining myself performing the song I'm listening to, usually on a big world stage or on something like, you know, my own like arena tour with millions of fans. And I know that isn't real, but it's always fun to pretend. It's always fun to have like your own separate headcanon from reality. I also like at the beginning the line, millions of girls float, on that one quote. And in an interview she said she was referencing the Marilyn Monroe quote, that if you were on Facebook, sort of from like 2008 to 2012, you know the quote I'm talking about. The quote that was just always used all the time, you know, that I'm selfish, insecure, impatient, etc. But if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best, whatever. I don't even know if Marilyn actually said that. I don't know, but people really did take that idea and run with it, didn't they? Back in the day, it was all over Facebook everywhere. I may have shared it once or twice myself. On to track 7, we have Power and Control. Power and Control is where it starts to get a little bit darker in terms of the themes as well as the sound. Power and Control has like a sort of sinister undertone to it. I love the lyric, you may be good looking, but you're not a piece of art. It details the power dynamics and that struggle for power in a relationship. Electra Heart is somebody who is not going to be controlled, even if she might be weak. I like the lyric, a human vulnerability doesn't mean that I am weak. And then the hook repeats into that I am weak, and it's like, are you actually weak? Just because you say you're not weak doesn't mean that you are, or not. Power and Control actually was a single as well, released in July 2012, and I seem to think, I remember reading it reached like 188 in the charts or something like that, so just goes to show that we, the British public, rarely have good taste. Track number 8 is Living Dead. This one's an interesting one for me because I do actually feel it's probably the most relatable song for me, which does probably raise some alarm bells, so don't worry about that. Because it's Marina talking about how sort of dissatisfied where she is at life, and she feels like she's not really living, she's kind of just existing, and she's waiting for her life to begin properly, and it never seems to, and she's always stuck in the same space. That's something that I definitely, especially in my early 20s, really felt like I related to, you know, that feeling of like every day is the same, and like, you know, when's my big break gonna come, or when's my husband gonna show up, like, you know. And of course those are the kind of things you do have to work for, you do have to get out there and find it, but it could be very demotivating when you aren't really making progress with it. And that's why I sort of relate with the song Living Dead. Now, I should, for anyone who knows the song already, I don't relate to the chorus, because the chorus is her just saying, I'm living dead, 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 and she says the word dead about like 50 times in that song. I don't relate to that bit, so anyone watching it who's worried, don't worry about that. But it's actually, I initially didn't like the song very much because I thought the chorus was really repetitive, and I was like, there's only so many times I want to hear the word dead in a song. But I actually think the chorus really works because it's very repetitive, but I think that works with the frustration of like the repetitive life that she's living and the sort of frantic desperation of wanting a change. So I actually think it's very clever. Track 9, we have Teen Idol. Another song that 20-year-old me definitely related to back in the day. Sort of lamenting like wasted youth. It's very slow. It's not a song I'd put on at pre-drinks. It's a bit of a mood killer. Also, at this point in the album, we are in full on like depressive episode, darker territory now. The song laments wasted youth and wishing they sort of made more of who when they were a teenager, and I definitely got that as well, because like I said, when this album came out I was 20, and I remember when I turned 20 I very much felt a bit like I've not achieved anything, and like I didn't have like my teenage dream, as it were. At that point in my life I had never had a boyfriend, and I'd only like, you know, I'd never experienced anything like romantic, and I was like thinking like I'm 20 years old and I've never experienced this. Now looking back on it, I realise it's probably because I was a queer person living in a very straight world, so I don't feel that way anymore. But back then, it was like that kind of existential crisis, and when I heard Teen Idol, I was like, oof. Yeah, when I first listened to Teen Idol, it was one of those moments where, you know, you're just a bit like, you know what I mean? But yeah, Teen Idol is a very good song. I think it's very effective. I just wouldn't listen to it at pre-drinks. Next up, we have Valley of the Dolls, which is another sort of depressive kind of song, talking about how she's like sort of lived her whole life sort of feeling empty and pretending to be somebody she's not, and sort of having all these different personalities, none of which are actually like who she is. Valley of the Dolls, again, is another one of those songs where it's a bit like, oh god, you know, I certainly would not recommend putting this on at a party either. It's the kind of song you'd probably listen to in a bathtub whilst you drink a fucking large glass of wine and lament over all the men you've previously dated or something. Yeah, Valley of the Dolls is probably my least favourite track on the album, but it's still a good one, and it still works really well with the, you know, the motif that this album sets out. Track 11 is Hippocrates, or Hippocrates, as it is spelled. A song about, well, hypocrites. The clue's in the name, really. Hippocrates touches on the themes of hypocrisy, people who are very quick to tell you what you're doing wrong, but, you know, people who are very good at telling you what to do and not doing it themselves. I'm sure we all know somebody who fits this bill pretty well. I'm not naming any names, but I know some people like that. And to be fair, we're probably all like that. I know I'm very good at giving advice and not following it myself, so we're all hypocrites, aren't we, at this point? Track 12 is Fear and Loathing. Now this song closes out the standard edition of the album. Fear and Loathing actually was the first song from Electra Heart that was ever released as well. It was released as the first part in the 11-part series. And then also it works very well as a closing track too. I find it a very sort of therapeutic song to listen to. There's definitely a sense of finding inner peace and starting again with Fear and Loathing. I especially love the lyric, now I see it for the first time, there is no crime in being kind. Not everyone is out to screw you over. Maybe, yeah, just maybe they just want to get to know ya. It's a song that kind of, I think, takes accountability for bad things that may have happened to you through your own actions, and deciding to take some responsibility and be responsible for your own happiness. You know, don't want to live in fear and loathing. I don't want to be, you know, Marina saying, I don't want to be this hateful, bitter person that I have become. I want to enjoy life and actually begin to trust people again. Something that I absolutely related to as well, you know. I did have a lot of intrusive, not very pleasant thoughts, both about myself and about other people around me, and I became very sort of untrusting of people and not really seeing anything positive. I was very much seeing the negative side of everything, and Fear and Loathing is a song that definitely helped me think, well, actually, it's not that bad, is it? You know, there are nice people out there, you just don't focus on them. And I think Fear and Loathing is a really nice closing track on this album, because Electra Heart is an alternative persona that like has different facets. It's kind of like a battle in someone's mind of like which personality is going to be the dominant one, and then I feel like Fear and Loathing is sort of making peace with the fact that, well, actually all of these personalities are kind of part of me. They're all, you know, a part of me, and I can exist as I am. It feels very much like an epiphany song in that respect. So Fear and Loathing will always have a special place in my heart, because it's definitely a song that helped me back in the day. And then with that we move on to the deluxe tracks. Glove Check. Ooh. Can you see that? That is... Wow, I've only worn these for the first time today. It's because I'm so hench, that's what it is. Anyways, track 13 is Radioactive. Now, Radioactive was released in September 2011 as a promo track for the album. I don't know if it was like the intended lead single or not, because it was the first song for this album to be released like properly, you know, with a single you can buy. But at whatever point down the line, Prima Donna got chosen instead. Radioactive is rather clubby. I was actually a little bit off-put by Radioactive when I first heard it, because I was like, this sounds really generic. And I didn't quite realise that that was actually the point. You know, it was Marina being somewhat ironic by doing a song that sounds generic, and that could be sung by anyone, but it has lyrics that are very Marina. And the kind of lyrics that only she can really pull off. I can kind of see why Radioactive wasn't like included in the main body of the album, but I'm glad that it got its moment on the deluxe version, because it is a good song as well, and I do think the lyrics are really good. We then have Sex Yeah as track 14. Sex Yeah is sort of very up-tempo, talks about sort of sexual taboos and like the double standards between men and women, and how sex is portrayed in the media. I particularly like the lyric "tired image of a star acting naughtier than we really are," because to me it kind of conjures up images of singers who are trying to be sexy and they're wearing like maybe sort of scantily clad outfits, but they can't really pull it off, and you know they're not very comfortable with it, but it's probably the record label that's pushed them into doing it. On to track 15, we have Lonely Hearts Club. Now I have to say, I was obsessed with Lonely Hearts Club. I don't really know why, but I really hammered on home with that song. This is back in the day when, you know, I used iTunes and we still had iPods, and I can remember Lonely Hearts Club must have exceeded 100 plays within like the first week. I was honestly obsessed with it. I just had it on repeat, loads. I don't really know why, but it's a really good song nonetheless. And it also was what the tour was named after as well. And inside this case, I actually have my ticket for the Lonely Hearts Club tour as well. Lonely Hearts Club is a very good song, you know, talks about sort of, do you want to be with someone like me? Do you want to be with this lonely heart? You know, I'm very needy, and if you take advantage of that, it's probably going to crush me, and it's very good. And then the last track on the deluxe version is By the Stars, which is a lovely piano ballad. Very much, I think, harkens back to the Family Jewels era as well. It would easily fit in on that album. It's very like existential and like talking about a guy who's like trying to sort of own her through material goods, using stars as a metaphor, and it's like, well, actually, no, you can't really buy me through the stars, because the stars are in the sky and they're free for everyone to see. And it's also a very nice way to close off the album in this version. And then we have the 4 extra tracks that came after the album was released. First up, we have How to Be a Heartbreaker, which is possibly one of Marina's most successful songs, and definitely like a signature track. How to Be a Heartbreaker is a step-by-step guide, well, telling you how to be a heartbreaker. We have the verses are broken up into rules, and one of the rules, rule number 3, is wear a heart on your cheek, which is what I'm doing today, if you hadn't noticed already. How to Be a Heartbreaker is a very good, sort of sassy, up-tempo song that definitely deserves to be a bigger hit in the charts than it actually was, but it's still one of Marina's signature songs and a fan favourite, you know, to this day. And the video, featuring several scantily clad men, you know, was a nice accompaniment. Actually very interesting though, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Marina had trouble getting that video out there because they were like, oh no, it's too provocative, it's too sexual. And it's like, but there's all these videos which basically have the same concept but with women, so what gives? You Had to Be a Heartbreaker was originally, I believe the story goes, she wrote it sort of the week after the album came out, so it was included on the US version of Electra Heart, and then we had it over here in the UK as a single much later. It got delayed. I can remember its release date just kept getting delayed, but eventually we got it. We then have EVOL, which was a free download released on Valentine's Day in 2013. EVOL is love spelled backwards, and if you say it like evil, it sounds like evil, and you know, clever wordplay. It's quite sort of sinister sounding as well, actually, and I think it does work very well as an Electra Heart track. You know, it talks about fucking up love and making it evil by, you know, and doing so and spelling it backwards. It's very clever. You know, Carol Vorderman who. I personally think Marina should be replacing Rachel Riley on Countdown, but then that's another video for another day. The penultimate track of this selection is a song called Just Desserts. This was released as a free download as well in May 2013, and it features Charlie XCX. This is from sort of when before Charlie XCX was really big. I think, you know, she was still quite well known and had, you know, had a sizable fan base, but she hadn't broke through into mainstream yet. She hadn't released Boom Clap, is basically what I'm saying. Just Desserts is a good song, actually. It talks about somebody who's been messing about and Karma's giving him his just desserts. And Charlie and Marina definitely worked well together. I think their sounds back then at least complemented each other very well, and some of Charlie's debut album would easily sound at home on a Marina record as well. Don't think that's so much the case now. I think both artists have moved on quite a bit, but at that point in time they were very, very good together. And the final track in this video is the titular track, Electra Heart. This was released in August 2013 as the final video for the Electra Heart series, and it's a very chaotic track. It's quite intense. It very much sounds like if Electra Heart is a game, then this is the final boss. It very much gives me final boss music. And it's epic as well. It feels like it's sort of like a showdown between Marina and Electra, and it's like this is the moment finally when Marina has herself back, and now her and Electra are like fighting it out, and you know, who's gonna win? Of course it's gonna be Marina. I actually love in the video that she symbolises the killing off of Electra Heart by smudging the cheek, by smudging off the heart on her cheek. The heart on the cheek being smudged off is like very symbolic of she is expelling Electra from her life. I think it's fantastic, and I really liked this at the time because, again, you know, due to sort of being in 2012 not being in the best headspace for a lot of that year, and then being in a better headspace in 2013, I again related because I was thinking like, you know what, yeah, I'm saying a good old fuck you to past me, you know, because it has the energy of I'm moving on. I don't need to be this person anymore. I can just be who I am and move on and prosper. And that segues very well into the opening of Fruit with the song Happy, but of course we don't get into that now, we'll get into the next week. And so that sums up Electra Heart, a 20 tracks ultimately, chaotic at points. Some people didn't like Electra Heart at the time. I can sort of see why some people might not like it because a lot of the sound is very commercialised and that's not what Marina was known for, but then she still puts her own spin on it. She wasn't selling out at all with this album. And I think if anyone thought that at the time, then they didn't get it. Thankfully, in terms of my headspace, you know, I have moved on from where I was in 2012. So this album doesn't sort of speak to me in the way it did back then, but it almost serves as like a sort of nice time capsule for back then for me, and a reminder of like where I've come. You know, some of the songs I can listen to now and think, oh, so glad I don't feel that way anymore. So it definitely has a special place in my Electra Heart. And with all of that being said, thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to join me next insert time frame here, hopefully next week, we'll see, when we'll be discussing 2015's Fruit, the last album with the name and the diamonds on it. Fruit is also very good as well, so I look forward to discussing it with all of you. And that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, give a comment if you liked it, don't give a comment if you didn't like it, and have a lovely day and stay safe and do all that good stuff. And of course, don't forget, please book me. Mwah. I mean it now because we actually can have gigs now.